Every once in a blue moon, an anime comes along that manages to really wow me. It explodes its way into my life, beats me silly with how good it is, and then steals my underwear? That doesn't seem right. Hello and welcome back to my basic anime reviews, which is specifically not a Thursday thermal take because one, it's not remotely a Thursday, and two, the overall take probably isn't really enough of a hot take to warrant the thermal designation. I mean, it's a bit saying something's the best anything is usually a hot take, but you know, honestly, just let me know in the comments as to whether or not I'm crazy and whether or not you want to see more of these videos in particular. We are talking today about what I consider to be the best isekai anime of all time, Konosuba, or the full title, Konosubarashi Sekai ni Shukufuku wo, or in English, Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World. Though these takes are, you know, somewhat inherently subjective, I have evidence to back my claim, kind of, mainly that Konosuba does not suffer from the same inherent and exhaustive problems that most of, if not all, other anime in the isekai genre have inherent to their stories. Obviously, isekai means like a main character transported into another world, has to survive there, do things, etc. Very familiar with the genre. Seen a lot of anime in it. A lot of people. If you don't know what an isekai is, just you know, figure it out. It's a trope now. It's common. It's been like the 2010s all the way through now, like the anime genre that everyone's familiar with. That kind of just keeps multiplying somehow. We're not really sure how. We're not really sure how they do it. They do it anyway. But first, definitely be sure to leave a like on the video. Very much appreciated. And hit that subscribe button and bell for notifications if you want to see more content like this on a regular basis. Now, the three overall categories of inherent isekai weakness can be summarized as follows. 1. Bad or iffy quality of the characters. 2. Bad or iffy story quality. 3. Maybe the most controversial of all. The main character is broken and nothing they do ever seems to go wrong. AKA the male fantasy. Realistically speaking, I'd say from having watched, you know, several dozen titles in the isekai genre, roughly anywhere from about half to 70% of isekai anime probably suffer from, I'd say, all three of the issues, and about 90 to 95 at least have two or the above, with characters being the most common issue of the three. When looking at the characters in an anime, there are protagonists, supporting main characters, as well as side and or background characters that we have to consider. Very often, the main character of an isekai is either a generic guy that is designed so that the audience can easily identify or self-insert themselves into the boring and generic husk of a dude. Think black or darker hair, average build, boring expressions, and worst of all, no odd personality characteristics to be found. No quirks, no flaws to delve into, just bleh. And then there's Konosuba, in which we have our main character, Kazuma, who is completely the opposite of that in just about every way. I mean, he does have basic brown hair, but, you know, besides that, Kazuma does fit the description as a shut-in and is widely his own character in ways not exemplary of a generic onlooker in every other facet of his being. He's a shut-in, but he is also relatively lazy, perverse, mischievous, and downright disrespectful in a way which makes him both very entertaining to watch on a consistent basis, and even somewhat lovable and genuinely relatable on a case-by-case basis throughout the series thus far. Watching this guy is kind of just like watching an absolute train wreck of a funny and, you know, very, very flawed person. I'll exemplify this. Kazuma is not, like, heroic. That's probably what makes the series tick overall. His reactions to the surrounding environment and other characters add an entertaining and dramatic flair, critical to the value of the series, I would argue. Then, of course, you have the rest of the party and the recurring characters, which very often, in usual isekai, are just boiled down to an archetypal or stereotypical mold. Let's see, what are some examples of stereotypical isekai characters? Let's see, just to list a few. We got uninteresting love interest who has a hard time expressing her feelings for main character. Groupie girls who are just a supporting role in a party and provide nothing in the overall character dynamic other than also liking the main character. That one bro type friend who is a generic cool guy, wingman, bestie vibe. The mascot animal or character that does cute things. Stoic paladins, cocky bastards, overpowered fan service, well-endowed fan service, and those weird characters who are all dark and brooding because they're the last of their tribe. That pretty much describes, I don't know, like, all of them. Like, just about every major character in Isekai, to some extent, I would think. Not this one, though. In Konosuba, we have characters that are very difficult to be boxed into any one of those categories specifically. It'd probably be a federal offense if I didn't emphasize, Megumin in this section. She doesn't fit realistically almost any of these character molds. If you even tried to put her in a box, one of those prior boxes, she completely dodges it. It's probably one of the best character writings I've seen in just anime in general, let alone Isekai. But keeping it brief, we got Aqua, Megumin, and Darkness, who are the other party members. Wiz, Chris, and even the princess from the most recent season are also excellent examples of side characters. All women. They've got the women folk type deal with the main protagonist. They all kind of like him. Most of them like him a little too much, probably for their own good. And they all stand out in their own ways, while not falling into some sort of weird Mary Sue stereotype or some overpowered Deus Ex Machina role. They all kind of have their own struggles. They all have their own quirks. They all have their own personality. They're not just kind of empty husks. And I know I'm being really, really unfair to the majority of Isekai overall, but it does feel like there's too many boring-ass characters. Full disclosure, I am not one of those weird, feminist anime fans who goes around talking about how all the characters in all of these different anime are all kind of lame women who can't stand up for themselves or fight or do anything. Honestly, Konosuba completely dodges any sense of that or anything else related to women characters. Very excellent, very goated. You have all these different quirky little characters. It's so fun. I would just if you're even watching this video, you can turn this off and go and watch the anime if you want. But, that's bad for my algorithm, so I shouldn't tell you to leave. But you should watch this anime. They're fantastic. Realistically, I'm not even sure if Konosuba would be all that good without, Darkness's self-satisfactory combat sacrifice getting beat the crap out of, or the catchphrasic once per day Megumin explosion, both of which somehow add stability and recurring predictiveness, but also maintain that sense of funny, entertaining, and unpredictable whimsy that this show specializes in. Even going into the minutia, the one-offs, the random enemies, and the trope characters, I'm thinking like Mitsurugi, the sword dude, and Eris, the god lady, they're very flavorful and meaningfully crucial within the story themselves. This isekai does not waste characters. They make them work really, really well. And I've rarely seen that in almost any anime, let alone in isekai. Watching these characters grow and solve problems is just exponentially more rewarding in Konosuba than it is in other narratives. Those of which are the vital factor in most isekai anime, let alone being an essential piece of any story. Isekai anime usually revolve around the situation and overarching mission of the story, often being things like, returning to Earth, defeating the Demon King, and saving the country or world that they were plonked into. That's pretty much just about every isekai. Well, I suppose technically Konosuba has those parameters in there, I guess. The story rarely makes those stereotypical goals all that relevant. By the end of the second season, Aqua returning to her old job feels like really the only relevant driving force, and it's really only about her character in particular. At the point in which I'm in, having watched seasons 1, 2, and 3, as well as that really excellent movie that they had, Kazuma's old life wasn't really the blessing that this isekai world has to offer, so returning doesn't really feel like a real goal. Darkness and Megumin are in it for the journey rather than being in it for the destination. Both of them have their own things that they want to do, but a lot of it has to do with, the journey, going through things, defeating things, having friends. And honestly, defeating the Demon King's armies really feels more like a side quest rather than the main focus of the story throughout the whole isekai itself. All those factors allow Konosuba's narrative more breathing room to explore fun and odd plot lines rather than to feel rushed or make narrative progress or even block that progress entirely to explore character development or episodic plot lines. Konosuba does this perfectly, in which they're able to get through some of the plot, finish their season, do that kind of thing, get through a lot of the main story, but do it in a way which is very well spaced out, very well supported by each episodic plot, and ends up exploring a lot of in-depth character things and doing things with their characters that other anime they have a hard time doing overall. Not just isekai, but especially in isekai, where the characters they just don't have that kind of breathing room in other isekai. It's hard to think of another isekai that I've seen that ever allowed characters a good amount of time to explore a specific plot relevant only to their character, to really make a lot of progress character-based, and then kind of resume the story. For that reason, isekai are rarely more than a couple of seasons, because not working to resolve the overall plot ends up becoming more boring for the viewer, especially so if the characters themselves don't have much to offer. Breaking the mold on the typical works too well for Konosuba, and honestly leaves me dreading the idea of having to come to the endpoint of the story, as opposed to really hungering for the way it does in other isekai. Speaking of hungering for the end of the fantasy, isekai's most controversial trope leaves most fans and haters alike wanting more, and Konosuba ignores it entirely. The idea of the male fantasy being completely broken as a character, having stupidly great powers or abilities, while having women throw themselves at you for no particular reason, or like some isekai tend to do, getting serious success based on capitalistic enterprise that you have unparalleled advantages in. That's a really weird subgenre, but all together, these isekai, they try to make this big fantasy aspect happen, where you just have everything, work. How unrealistic and consequence-free the main character is able to traipse about the world, accomplishing seemingly unreasonable amounts without any personal growth, or really any reasonable impetus for success. That's like the struggle of every isekai. Personally, it doesn't bother me enough to really go all to town about for days on end, but I know a lot of people, they're watching isekai, you see the main character, women throw themselves at him, you got them like beating everything, destroying it with their overpowered BS abilities. It's not always that fun for the brain. It's kind of like fan service for fan service's sake. However, Konosuba tackles big obstacles within its story, don't get me wrong, but in a way that requires struggles, successes, and failures in a more meaningful way. For example, every time the main party does anything, consequences are usually a very major factor. You want to save the town from the Demon King General's big attack? Well, it turns out that, spoiler alert incoming, this causes major economic upheaval in neighboring areas, and blew up some rich guy's house, leading to a whole lot of random plot threads that end up tangling together and making a lot of problems for the characters. Probably my personal favorite example of this is the consequences of having Megumin practice her explosion magic, boom, bang, kabow, on an abandoned castle every single day. But I'll let you find about that one for yourself. You gotta watch the anime. Like I said, go after this video. Watch the anime. It's great. Anyway, whenever things start to look up for the gang, they wind up having to sacrifice something or somehow take on an enormous burden in which they don't personally benefit, while still trying to keep their journey intact. I especially love how they make good use of these unspoken, understood rules of the game when it comes to Darkness's escapades. Very good plot. Essentially, in the world of Konosuba, actions have consequences, and you're going to have to struggle a lot to accomplish the things that you want to do. But that makes the story feel very rewarding in a way that, honestly, I haven't been very used to with other isekais. Dare I even posit that the real male fantasy all along was actually success in the face of hardship and meaningful personal growth amidst friends who love you, as imperfect as you are. Like that'll ever happen. Anyway, Konosuba is absolutely goated, and you should go ahead and watch it because it transcends the concepts of isekai and actually has interesting characters. Can't really stress that enough. Interesting characters make a good story. Interesting plot, it's not a cookie cutter plot. It's not the stupid, like, anime protagonist isekai garbage plot that everything tries to sort of put its own spin on. Completely deviates from that. And even, dare I say, philosophical big chungus moment when they make it seem like, it's a lot more of a blessing that Kazuma is able to actually go through this world, facing hardships, growing as a person, while still having his friends the way that they are. It does really kind of bring to mind the idea that isekai, the male fantasy, that's probably a wrong take overall. But anyway, let me know what you think about this video in the comments. Tell me if you want to see more me gushing about random anime that I like, or crapping on anime that I don't like. Definitely be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and you can check out other videos I've done on other stuff up there and down there and over there. Have a good rest of your day, and bye-bye.